Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we will be looking at a ship that has been sort of snuck in with a sonar sweep. And I know that a lot of the CCs don't really like supporting this sort of thing, and it's gambling. So are crates. At the end of the day, you spend a lot of money, and until you end up getting the ship that is there, and the underlying theory obviously is sunk cost, where you've already spent a lot of gold on gambling in the sweep, and you feel like your chances are increasing to actually get the ship, and you just do that one more try to do the next one. So I'm reviewing that regardless, because it's always good to know if you want to do that, and I'm not one to tell you to do this or not to do this. Everybody. I believe in people having freedom of choice, as long as the choice is informed and people are doing this out of their own free will. I know that there are people who are addicted to gambling, and that these kind of mechanics are bad for these people. But then so is going to a pub, because you will see a gambling machine. Yes, kids are included, but parents are necessary to keep an eye on, are required to keep an eye on the expenses that their kids are having, and make sure that they can't just use a credit card willy-nilly in the internet. So, all the moral questions out of the way. The other reason I'm looking at these things is because you will find them in the enemy team, and it's good if you know what they can and can't do, and maybe they start showing up in the shipyard at some point, at which point it's always good to know, to have it available and to know what these kind of things are capable of. So, long introduction out of the way. Let's get to it. This is the Carnot, the Tier 9, totally not a battlecruiser, and it's French, and it's not completely hypothetical. So back when the naval treaties were still a thing, both Italy and France had a sort of a budget that they could use to build some new ships. And the Italians had built I believe it was the Trento class cruisers, and the French were a little bit worried about these. So they wanted to build a thing that could kill the Trento class cruisers. So they came up with an idea of they didn't call it a battle cruiser, but it was technically what it was. It was a sort of large cruiser killer thing, similar to what the Americans did quite a while later with the Alaska class. And they had a design for something that was pretty massive and would fire 305 millimeter shells, and would be able to take on the Trento. So speed was of the essence. Armor was secondary, because she only had to defend herself against the 8-inch shells that something like a Trento would be firing. But they were a bit worried of blowing their budget on these things, while the Italians hadn't quite made up their mind yet what they were going to use theirs for. And then, of course, the Deutschland class happened. And as we all know, the Deutschland class completely dominated everybody on the seas and caused all the naval designers across the world to get their knickers in a twist and be extremely worried. So they scrapped that and came up with the Dunkirk to counter the Deutschlands, because the Deutschlands had 283 millimeters, so the Dunkirk ended up being a battle cruiser-ish thing with 330 millimeters. And so this design never went anywhere. But that's sort of where Wargaming picked it up and say, hey, yes, that's a thing. So I zoom out a little bit, because there's probably another reason. I don't know if that's a reason, but there's a nice coincidence, because we just reviewed the Congress. The absolutely hilariously terrible Tier 8 battlecruiser thing, Alaska predecessor, that came out a while ago. So the French needed one as well, apparently, because that thing's absolutely massive. Let me show you. So this is the Saint Louis. This is the Saint Louis, the Tier 9 French tactical cruiser. That is the Carnot. All right, let's put the battleships in there as well. I want to see that. That's the Alsace. That is a post Richelieu design. That is the Carnot. That thing is huge. Okay, let's start comparing and see what we got ourselves into. So I'm going to compare her to the Henri because even though actually let me show you that as well. Let's take the tier 10s in there. That is the Henri. That is the Carnot. That thing's huge. Anyway, that's what she said. Carnot versus Henri. Let's compare that. Even though Henri is a tier 10. So first thing that stands out is that while the Carnot gets 4 engine boosts, which is a decent amount, she does not get the typical rapid reload that you normally find on French ships. She does get scout planes, which is something you normally find more on Italians. And she gets a defensive AA, which I think some of the French premium cruisers might have, so this might not be completely out of the blue here. But it feels a bit like someone took a hat, put all the, wrote each ship skill on a little piece of paper, put it in there, and that's okay. Somebody draw 3 out, and then that's what we're going to give this thing. So we have an extremely large, very fast, long-range def AA battlecruiser. Might work. Let's look at the statistics. The armor, or lack thereof, is identical between the Carnot and the Henri. Henri has terrible armor, so does the Carnot. She got a bit more hit points, but the maneuverability is distinctly worse, right? It's because it's a really, really big, it's an absolute unit. It's a really chunky ship. I did check with my 10-year-old if you could still say absolute unit in this day and age, and I think that is still a thing, so I hope I haven't been boomering too much here. The gun layout is obscure, because yes, we get 305mm guns. We get 2 triple turrets and 1 quad turret. Okay, sure. For a grand total of 10 guns. Well, might as well. Obviously, compared to the 240mm on the Henri, they do a bit more damage, both on the HE and AP. But they have shorter range, and they take 16 seconds to reload, and you don't get a rapid reload. 16 seconds. Okay. We do get secondaries, 139mm guns, which have a pretty good range, but the damage output is kind of meh. And we actually get auto secondaries as well. So this would be dual purpose 100mm. We do not get any torpedoes. So this is really more like a French battleship than a cruiser. No torpedoes, no long range torpedoes. The AA is pretty meh, but then again it's a tier 9, and she does get the def AA to double these values. This is not an AA ship. You can shoot down some planes, but you're not gonna defend yourself against an airstrike. And the dive bombers are going to have a really, really hard time actually missing you. Same with the torpedo bombers. And the concealment's pretty good with 8.8 kilometers, which of course flies in the way of physics, reality, and everything else, but such is gaming. So we've got a stealthy, massive battle cruiser with terrible reload, secondaries that you really don't want to use, because if you're fighting anything at that range, you're in trouble, maybe against destroyers. But it's got some AA, and it does get the scout planes to extend the range, so giving it that one. I did want to compare her to the Alaska, because that's sort of a similar style of ship here. And the Alaska is obviously better armored, and nobody's accusing the Alaska of being particularly well armored, especially for a tier 9 ship, because tier 9 matchmaking is a thing, and you are going to get shot at by 457mm and up guns a lot, because it's tier 9. You get into tier 10 games. There's going to be Yamatos and Vermonts and Großer Kurfürsts and everything else. So Alaska, sort of comparable maneuverability, I would say. But the Alaska gets a better range and 3 second faster reload on these guns. And obviously, these are a little bit more precise than these French guns. Because French guns tend not to be particularly precise. They are more on the throw a lot of shit at the wall, excuse my French, pun intended, and some of it will stick. So, yeah. Alaska's gun's a bit better on the armor piercing. And yes, obviously, Alaska gets secondaries as well. And Alaska obviously has a noticeably better AA than this thing. And a much, much worse concealment, although they've buffed that already. So it's sort of a French Alaska, but also not. So it's absolutely honking massive. It has no armor. And yeah, this is rather strange gun layout, because we've got the we've got kind of 7 guns forward and 3 in the rear. The angles on the turrets are pretty good. If you look at the superstructure, there's not an awful lot of obstruction in the way, so these guns can swing around quite a fair bit. All right, so how do we set this thing up then? Let's have a look at the elite bonuses first. You can get torpedo damage reduction, which you don't need, because why? Or you could get a main battery reload, which you desperately need. So, and a bit of traverse speed, which you also need, because these turrets are big. So that would be the better choice there, in my opinion. You kind of do want to have the main battery mod 3, because even though it doesn't provide an awful lot of bonus, the dispersion is not great. I mean, it's not Congress level of terrible, but it's not great by any imagination, especially at long ranges, unless you're firing at perfectly broadsiding battleships. Like hitting battleship weak spots with the scout plane up is, you might as well not try. Just shoot it at the general direction such that it lands in the same postcode and see what happens. I do want propulsion in too, because this thing is all about speed. You need to get into positions from where you can do something. And the third slot is actually in concealment. This would be what I would prefer. This is what I ended up doing. Because this thing is such a damage piñata for the large guns, because of the absolute size it has, that being able to disengage and to sneak into positions at the beginning is pretty essential, almost more so than the steering. I have put sort of, there's nothing surprising here. It's kind of, she doesn't get a rapid reload, she doesn't get a precise aim. You can use the FAA, and you obviously want the engine overload. Other than that, it's a pretty standard build. You would build obviously for hit point tanking, because that's the only thing you can do, because you have no armor. APCS, because these guns actually, unlike the absolutely hilariously dreadful 305s on the Congress, these guns actually hit pretty hard. So if you can close the range a little, then these guns are pretty murderous. The problem is they have a 16-second reload. It takes forever. All right, so historical camo. I don't know if there is a camo in the thingy. Let's have a quick look. Where would it be? It would be somewhere. Sonar sweep. There we go. Is there a camo? Is there an alternate camo in here? There is not an alternate camo in there. Okay, so that is what we... Oh no, there it is. There it is. Okay, so it's the Flower of Steel camo. So the same as you would get on the Dunkirk. I like this camo. It's quite pretty. And this one gives us hit points, range, dispersion, and traverse. Good things. The historical camo gives us hit points, range, dispersion, and torpedo damage reduction, which is useless. So if you can get your hands on the alternative Flower of Steel camo, I think that would be the better choice. But, you know, you probably get it anyway if you're gambling for the thing. So it's more like if she comes out in a shipyard later on that you know about this. Right, what have I not looked at? I think I've looked at everything. So let's see some gameplay. The first battle is what I would call probably what you could expect from this ship. We are playing in a tier 10, it's a tier 10 game. We're up against Iowa, Izumo, Friedrich der Große, Stalingrad, Donskoy, and Groningen. Groningen, sorry. I just recorded it, now I fell for it myself. Groningen, Terry, Groningen. Yeah, so just the Stalingrad on the enemy team being an actual tier 10, and on our side we've got the Kleber as the tier 10, but it's center control, so let's go. The shells, the armor piercing is good. It's not as good. It's much better than say the terrible Congress that we have. So using the armor piercing even against battleship can result in some pretty satisfying results. The HE is meh. The biggest problem that the ship has is its size and its absolute lack of armor. So, and the downside is that unlike in the massive battlecruiser ship things like the Henri, you don't get the rapid reload. So you have to contend yourself with a 16-second reload on these guns. And we have a Stalingrad on the enemy team, which is, by all intents and purposes, a much better ship. especially if you've got something like APCS. So the guns are good. I do like the guns. The reload is terrifyingly bad, and I think that is one of the massive weak spots. But you see how much that you can get relatively good angles on this thing, and the concealment is very good, such that you can get yourself into position. Now I am trying to assist with the capture progress here because it is a center control map, and you know already how that's going. I'm using the island to try and shield myself from incoming fire. That's just a bot Monty, so it's not going to do an awful lot, but there will be some fire. So yep, there it comes. You have to use these kind of defensive measures to cover your turn. There comes an Izumo out. He thinks he's a battleship, but there's a Stalingrad. Can I get some shots on? Not really. Okay, let's get some shots on the Izumo, and then we are taking a lot of fire, so it's time to get the heck out of here, dodge what we can. There's an Iowa. It's also squishy. A lot of tempting targets, but we don't want to stay here and overstay our welcome. I am still trying to assist with the capture progress, but half of my battleship line has decided that they'd rather be behind an island than in the capture circle. So just doing a little bit of damage to the Izumo. And then, yeah, I'm starting to take fire, so let's get the heck out of here. Engine boost up, full speed ahead, and run for your life, because there comes the gunfire. And this is not going to end well if you overstay your welcome. You do have the like someone needs to cap, right? I can't do this. Not in this thing. You do have the. I mean, I'll try, but. You do have the scout plane to extend your range a little bit. Oh, that Donskoy just took a big old hit. Let's see if we can follow that up with the rear turret. Front turret, now it comes into the island. Okay, that was unfortunate. There's two semi-pens, that usually works a little better. Especially at close range, the guns are pretty good. At long range, they can sometimes struggle a bit with the AP, but I would still use AP against battleships at long range until you're shooting at something German potentially. So that Freddy is holding still. Let's get some shots out and then switch over to the HE. I am giving an awful lot of broadside here to that Izumo. Let's see if he's paying any attention. Oh, there comes the Freddy. These were only the secondaries, I think. So that would have hurt a lot more otherwise. The HE is meh. It's got an 11% fire chance. The big problem is that you can't really capitalize on it because you don't have the rate of fire to do anything like that. So, and as you can see, even if you're in cover, and if you're fiercely maneuvering, the amount of chunk damage that you're taking from battleship armor piercing is just massive. And yeah, okay, let's give up on trying to set that Freddy on fire and get the heck out of here while using the Sovietsky Soyuz to tank, because that's probably all that thing's good for. Because we do have an Izumo to shoot at, and I think against that weakly armored box, I do want to switch back to the armor piercing and make a run. This is a ship that you would want to play mobile. She is fast. She does almost 39 knots with the engine boost running. And you kind of want to be in positions where you can avoid being shot at. That's sort of when you can be like flank runs. That's what this thing is good at. The problem is the size and the absolute lack of armor. So those were some good hits on the Izumo. He's on no hit points. So let's see if we can. We are one kill behind, but let's see if we can get that Izumo. And that seems to have missed for some reason. Yeah, that thing's still up. Okay, so I'm gonna run up a bit further, see if I can get myself around the island and finish off the Izumo over there, and such that we can equalize on the kills. There is a cruiser back there, and by the matter of hurt that thing puts on, that's the Stalingrad. So there's also the Freddy, which means it's engine boost time. A couple more chunks from the dying Izumo, and now I'm up against Stalingrad. The problem is, yeah, that is the problem. Stalingrad is a nasty ship to play against, and I am also being shot at from the rear, I believe, so I can get a couple shots off, but the Stalin hasn't even managed to hit me properly. These were mostly probably overpens, but your health is just melting in this ship. There's absolutely nothing really you can do, especially against a precise cruiser like the Stalingrad. Going bow in would be useless as well. So I can get a couple shots on target, but I have nowhere near the precision of that thing, and at that range. yeah, you can't take that fight. I'm going to try and go undetected, but there comes a salvo and he still gets me. So we're still ahead on points, but we're now 2 kills behind. And that Jutland doesn't look too great as well. And I think we're about, I don't know where our cruiser is. He's exploring the far reaches of the map. Yeah, the Stalingrad is now that finished me off, that Minnesota is going to die. The Groningen is just going to airdrop him. And everybody is focusing him down. That Baltimore is being completely useless over there and not doing anybody any good. So, yeah. This is probably what you can expect from the ship if you play it. It's not a good ship. It's very much not a good ship. It's not as useless as Congress, but it's not an awful lot more useful than Congress. I really don't know why they keep making these things. I believe on PC you have I don't know, you have certain slightly different mechanics that you might be able to use. And but if you're looking for a super cruiser that works, Stalingrad, I think I've tested that thing. Oh yeah, Baltimore. That's going to be helpful. Stalingrad, I think is I mean, we've lost anyway, but there's no way he's going to kill that thing. So yeah, there comes the Stalingrad again. With the APCS, Stalingrad is a great ship. And maybe this is worth trying on this as well, but honestly, I don't really want to. The thing is too large. And she kind of works if given a chance to do a flank run and avoid being shot at. That's sort of what I'm trying to say. So where did we come in the team? Not very high, I believe. Let's just wait for it. Yeah, we ranked 11 out of 14, and there were bots in the battle. So yeah. This is kind of what you can expect the ship to do. She just doesn't have the rate of fire. The guns are good, but the rate of fire is atrocious. The armor is absent. And yeah, you really need the situations to happen. So let me show you how this works when the situations happen. Because here we are playing Hourglass. And we're up against Audacious, Lion, Izumo, Freddy, Holland, and another Holland, double Holland. So the Essex on our team's probably not feeling all too happy about that. At least the Hollands are going to be a little bit of a nasty surprise there. But yeah, if you can run a flank and you can manage to, shoot from second row, then you can start doing some damage. It's so in this case we will probably go left flank. Really, there are a couple of islands that we can use as cover. We've got very good concealment, so we've got a Colombo here that can help out with destroyers, because this is not a ship useful against destroyers by no stretch of an imagination, because the reload on the main guns is atrocious. The 139mm secondaries are crap, and the only thing they have going for them is good range, and the auto secondaries don't do an awful lot either. So and you have no torpedoes, so you're really just a big damage piñata. I haven't been spotted yet, so it looks like at least one destroyer should be on this flank, but there's also a bot destroyer, so depending on where the two Hollands were going, we might not be actually encountering them. And we're looping around here. I think I'm seeing 2 of the destroyers in the enemy capture circle, but we have a Lion to shoot at, and we have obviously outspotted that thing, so let's get the guns out. And there's a bot Fletcher. Okay, I'm not too concerned about that. Colombo can wipe that up. And you see, even without the APCS, you see how much damage these 305s can do come in against battleships. The only problem that they have is the reload. So if they buff the reload on this thing, I mean, look at the chunk damage I'm doing against that Lion. That is a lot better. And the Lion isn't shooting back at me. That's a lot better than what you could normally expect with other 305. So, good guns. And yeah, there we go. Nice. Obviously, still can't sit there broadsiding a Lion, but he's got the HE loaded, which can still citadel the crap out of me, but obviously set some fires. So I don't need to get out of here. Let's see if we can get him something else to shoot at. And just get out of range of that thing. That second salvo wasn't quite as satisfying, because we are opening up a little bit. That's one permafire, could have been worse, but we've now taken out the Lion because he was relatively alone here as well, and we did have some carrier support, and this has worked. So now we can go. Now we can get the scout out, the spotter plane out, and shoot from almost 15 kilometer range. And this is sort of where this thing shines, doing these kind of long-range operations and just unloading at enemy ships, using the scout plane, these sort of things. So, I mean, give her a third scout plane, maybe. I don't know. But I think a faster reload would like get the reload down to 14 seconds or something, and then we're talking. Because look at what this thing can do against an Izumo as well. And I'm firing a 10 kilometer here. There is some incoming fire, but I've managed to dodge that mostly. And at these ranges, you can actually dodge, even with something that size. You can dodge. The dispersion can be trollish, but can also be pretty good. And yeah, we've done three citadels already in this game against battleships. I mean, it was an Izumo, but and a lion, but we wouldn't get that against the German battleship. But against battleships, the guns are pretty good. And there she goes. That's the Izumo down. Now we've got the Freddy here, and yeah, stick behind your team. Use heals. Stay at distance. The 13 kilometers base range is not great, but with the scout plane up, you can operate. Or you can operate a bit better. So this is not a lost cause like the Congress. This could be a good ship. She just needs a bit of love, and probably at least 2 seconds off the base reload, and then we're starting to talk here. Maybe a little bit of range. I don't know, but this is a ship that can work, I think, in this extremely specific role, and just as it is right now, it's not a good ship. I would not recommend that. So, Freddy's on fire, and I've got a Christopher Colombo with me. There's the Audacious. Freddy is shooting. That's another fire. Freddy is shooting at who? Freddy is shooting at, I believe, the Colombo behind me, which is much appreciated. So, Shima takes out Freddy, which means we're back to the armor piercing against the Audacious. And yeah, we've ruffle stomped this battle pretty heftily. So we can make our way into the capture circle and just farm a little bit more damage on the enemy carrier. But this is the sort of situation that works, where the ship can work if she's being left alone, and she can fire at range, and just make use of her main guns. Now we're going to get into the capture circle and just have to wait out. There's not an awful lot happening anymore, so I might just fast forward to the point where we're capping. And we've capped them out, so that's that. Yeah, if you get the opportunity, you can do pretty well in it, but it's extremely situational. In most situations, she's not going to fare particularly well, and I would, as she is today, I would not necessarily recommend spending money trying to get this ship. So, but yeah, if you can get the situation in your favor, then she works pretty well. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.